Hello, fellow knights and warriors. This is my first video about the rules of the Cry Havoc. I am talking about the original rules from original game, because this game get a lot of expansions, and some expansions provide a lot of new rules, new things. There is also a special set of rules called Magna Carta that summarizes all the rules. And you know, there is also a Norman Saga series that provides a lot of new rules and is, well, different system. But today I am talking about Cry Havoc only. So, in the Cry Havoc we have two types of missile warriors, crossbowmen and shortbowmen. Crossbowmen are much more deadly, while shortbowmen have a higher rate of fire. You can fire in the three steps of the game. First, in the first step of each phase, where your shortbowmen can fire. Next, in the second step, all your crossbowmen may fire, exception crossbowmen who engaged in combat in the previous turn. And now, in the step 3, your units might move, save to the crossbowmen who fired in the step 2, and next in the step 4, all your shortbowmen may fire again. So you can already tell. Shortbowmen may fire twice, and crossbowmen may fire only once, and their attacks can be limited. But if they are firing, their fire is much more devastating, as you will soon see. Next, when you are going to fire, you have to check if you can fire. First of all, you have to trace the line of sight between you and your target. There are certain situations when your line of sight can be blocked. For example, it cannot be led through the 3 hexes. So, if he would be there, they wouldn't be able to see each other. They cannot be traced through the walls. So, these two guys cannot see each other. If you are firing through the windows, these brown spaces there, you can do it, but there comes limitations as well. For example, if your warrior is here, he can fire through this window outside, but he has to trace his line of sight only through this window. So he can see this hex and he can fire at it easily, but he wouldn't be able to fire there because this wall there will block his line of sight, since you are tracing a line of sight between the center of each hex. But if you are firing into the window, you can fire only on the hex which is adjacent to the window. So for example, this shortbowman can fire at this guy here, but if he would be there, he wouldn't be able to fire at him. But if he would be adjacent to the window, he would be able to fire inside the building. Yeah, this is something that you have to remember. Another thing are doors. There are two types of door, exterior and interior. Exterior doors work simply like a piece of open space between walls that allows you to fire through them. So these two guys can fire into each other, they can see each other clearly. But if he would be there, then this wall here would block line of sight between them. When it comes to the interior doors that lead inside the wall, inside the building, the situation gets a bit more complicated. If your enemy is on the door hex, you can fire at him easily and he can fire at you. But if you want to fire inside the building, you have to be on the door hex. It simulates the situation when the door is simply closed. And if you want to fire inside, you have to be on the doorway hex. So if he's there, he cannot fire at him. But if he would be there, he can fire anywhere inside this building, as long as he can trace the line of sight normally. And next, some terrains provides you a cover. Terrain type table tells you what kind of cover provides each building, each kind of terrain. This will be quite important soon. Next, when you know that you have a line of sight to your enemy, you have to check if there are no any other men of your line of sight, because if you are firing with short bow, you can fire above characters. You can have no more than 4 characters on your line of sight, and you can still fire above them, as long as none of them is adjacent to your enemy. So, for example, let's assume that this archer wants to fire at him, and he cannot because there is a warrior on the adjacent hex. But if he would be there, then this archer would be able to fire at this crossbowman. And from the other hand, crossbowmen can't do the same. They can only fire at the enemies if there is no one on their line of sight. So if he would like to fire at this archer, it wouldn't be possible because of this crossbowman. There must be a straight line of sight between crossbowman and his target. Alright, now we know what can block our line of sight. If you know how your line of sight works, you have to calculate the number of hexes between you and the target. You don't take your own hex into account. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There will be 6 hexes range between him and him. When you know your range, you go into the missile attack strength table to see what is the strength of your weapon. You take the number of the hex and see what range you have, short, medium or low or long, and now you can see the strength of your weapon. This column is for short bow, this column is for crossbow. So you can already tell that crossbow is much stronger than shortbow. When you know your strength, you have to take it and compare it with enemy defense strength. So he's firing with crossbow on the short range, so he has 60, and his defense is 4, so it will be 60 versus 4. You take your table and you see missile against infantry. This will be definitely higher than 12 to 1. So you will use this column. And now, when you know the basic column, you have to check for cover. And now we go into another thing, which is cover. A certain kind of terrains provide a cover. Terrain types table tells you what kind of cover provides terrain. If it is light cover, you have to shift 1 column in favor of the defender, and if it is medium cover, you have to shift 2 columns. So he is in the clear terrain, there is no cover, but if he would be on the tree, there would be light cover. And also scrap provides light cover, so firing here would provide light cover. Slope is something interesting. It provides medium cover or light cover. Let me show you to make sure. Yeah, medium cover, right? But it provides a medium cover only if the line of sight is traced to the top lip, this line. If it is traced from any other direction, there is no medium cover. And also, if you are firing from the adjacent hex on the unit on the slope, there is no medium cover. So, for example, if these 2 crossbowmen would fire at him, then there would be medium cover for him, because the line of sight crosses top lip of the slope, but there will be no medium cover if he fires, because his line of sight is not crossing top lip of the slope. So this is something you have to remember about. Also, if you are firing into the building, you can see that there is no cover, but if you are firing through the window or door, there is medium cover. So now when you know what cover you have, you need to check to make a roll d10. In the proper column there are two tables, one if you are targeting mounted warriors and one if you are targeting leg warriors. There is one more important thing about leg warriors that mounted warriors that we need to cover. If you are targeting mounted warrior, they are covering 2 hexes, so you have to choose which hex you are firing on, because sometimes you can see only one hex. For example, here he can fire only on this hex. This hex would be covered by these 3. So this is also one more thing that you have to remember about. And you are finding the result in the table, you are checking. There can be 3 results if you are firing on leg units, and there can be 6 results when you are targeting mounted warriors. So that should be most of the stuff when it comes to the mounted to the missile warriors. And judging on my own experience, missile warriors are very, very deadly opponents. I faced situations when I played this game and all the warriors were dead. I had only a couple of missile warriors on my board and they were firing each other until some of them were dead. And there is one very important rule that you should use. It is optional rule, but I strongly advise you to use it because it provides a very good limitation for missile warriors. It is ammo rule. Before you start the game, you make 3d10 roll for each of your missile warrior. You have to sum each of these rolls and you get an ammo number for each of your warrior. Take a piece of paper and note how many arrows or bolts each warrior have. As you can guess, these numbers might differ. For example, you might be very unlucky and roll only 3. You get 3d10s and you get 1, 1 and 1. So your warrior might start with 3 arrows or bolts. Or he might be extremely lucky and get 30 arrows or bolts. The situation might be different, but it usually ends with about 15 or 20 arrows. And every time you are firing, you have to subtract 1 from this number. This makes a game much more balanced, and your archers and crossbowmen will end of their missiles quickly. Well, depends on their number, but they won't be as deadly as they are. And along with this rule come another rule about ammunition exchange. It means that you have 2 missile warriors of the same type on the adjacent hex. You can declare that they want to exchange the missiles. So you can take as many missiles as you like from one of them and give them to another, but if you are doing this action, you have to spend all your other actions in this turn. You cannot fire and you cannot move. And if you are standing next to the dead archer or dead shotbowman, you can do the same with him. So for example, let's assume that he is dead. Let's make him dead and place another crossbowman. So he can say, I am taking his bolts, he's not going to need them anymore. So it works in the same way like exchange, but you are simply taking his bolts. So I strongly recommend you to use these rules. They make a game a bit more interested and balanced, but All you need to care is to keep the number of arrows and bolts each of your warriors has. That's why a piece of paper or text file comes very handy here. So, that would be all when it comes to the missile combat in Cry Havoc.